Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. Tulsi Gabbard has been confirmed as the new Director of National Intelligence. The vote was 52-48. How about that? It was basically a straight party line vote with Senator Mitch McConnell voting no, like he did with Pete Hegseth. We will have more on that tomorrow with our pals from Rootless. But she's through. That's incredible. That was a tough one. I mean, as you know, I went to that confirmation hearing, part of it, and my God, they were all so negative on her. It's like they didn't want to try something new. Notwithstanding Trump's overwhelming victory and his promise to the American people that he was going to shake things up and it would not be business as usual. And he had his team of Avengers who he was going to put in there. You had a bunch of old naysayers. You know, she's different. She looks different. She sounds different. She doesn't say all the things that all the others have said. And it took quite a bit of browbeating to get these Republican senators in line. The letters she had to write, it's just, boy, they really make you bend the knee when you're in her position. But you know what? She's in now. And that's that. You know, all we really needed was your yes vote. So thank you for doing that. And really, there should be a conversation about like exactly what extractions are appropriate to demand by these senators of cabinet nominees. I mean, this person, she's working for Trump, right? She's got oversight by the Congress, but she's not working for you. She wasn't hired by you directly, Senator. I've got a couple in mind, and I will do them the favor of not mentioning them here, but I think there will be a conversation to come on those who harassed people like RFKJ and Tulsi into, you will adopt all of my policy positions or I won't vote yes on you. You're not the president. It's annoying. All right, anyway, she got through. That's the important thing. Great. That's amazing. Thank goodness things are going to change. They're going to change within the intelligence services and the coordination of intel. And maybe we won't be so quick to say things like WMD and have 51 intelligence agencies or agents, former officials, cooperating with the agencies to undermine a presidential candidate. We need change. I mean, literally just today in the news, there is a story about how, you remember how I told you there was a Department of Homeland Security raid, there was an ICE raid by Tom Homan in Colorado on one of those apartment complexes where Tren de Agua has been hanging out, this Venezuelan disgusting gang. And he showed up and they were gone. Every apartment was empty where it had been full the day before. He was about to deport these people. Criminal gang members from Venezuela, all gone suddenly. So there was a leak that Tom Homan and ICE were showing up. And guess what Homan told Hannity last night? They think it was the FBI. They think the FBI was the one. We need serious overhaul at these organizations. That's why people don't give two shits what Kash Patel said about, the FBI needs to be made into a museum, that people of the deep state. Right. We're sick of this partisan bullshit in our agencies that are supposed to be enacting the will of the people, the will in this case of the people's president, Donald Trump. That Tom Homan said last night, someone's going to jail. This is beyond losing your cushy post at the FBI. Someone is going behind bars. They will figure it out. They will. And I can't wait to find out who it is. That's almost treasonous, what that person has done. I'm delighted that that agency is about to be in the hands of Kash Patel. It's great. And that you've got, Tom Homan and Kristi Noem. She said the same. She said, we think it was the FBI. How corrupt is this organization? So you've got Kristi Noem, you got Tom Homan, you got Kash Patel, you got Pam Bondi. All of them are going to work together to stop this nonsense, to put a stop to this because the DOJ oversees the FBI. Okay, that's that. Meanwhile, the big news of the day yesterday was when Doge chief, also, 40 billionaire. I don't know, like when you have 40 billion, are you a 40 billionaire? What are you? Elon Musk stopped by the Oval Office yesterday, along with his adorable son, X, who's only 4 years old. He loves that letter X, loves it. He's only 4. And with President Trump sitting by his side, Elon held court with the media in a newsy, casual, impromptu presser. It was a remarkable moment. And the left is predictably melting down over it. Every chance they have to drive a wedge between Elon and Trump. The other day I said I'd show you the Time magazine cover, then I forgot to. Maybe we can pull it over, you guys. But, Time magazine this week, it's got Elon in the Oval at the Resolute desk. It's, he's the real president. Obviously, they're just trying to irritate Trump and poke at Trump's ego. You're weak. You need Elon. You can't do it yourself. You're too old or infirm. Guess again. Trump is too smart to fall for your petty games. He knows that Elon is a great asset he has working for him. There's no confusion between the two men on who is top dog. And I don't think these petty tactics are going to work on Donald Trump. He's overcome a lot. I'm sure he can overcome a Time magazine cover and leftist media trying to press his buttons about why we're seeing so much of Elon. Do you think Trump really wants to be the one to go in and run Doge and be a number cruncher on what's happening at these federal agencies? Or do you think he might actually be delighted to be delegating some of that stuff to someone as smart as Elon and someone as proven when it comes to eliminating unnecessary fat from organizations as Elon? They're very upset about Elon. The left, the politicians, very upset about Elon and what he's doing, and we'll get to all of it. Joining me later in the program is Ana Kasparian of the Young Turks, but we start today with our pal Adam Carolla, host of the Adam Carolla Show. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you can impact your family, friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs as of September 2024, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Adam, welcome back. Great to have you. So Elon goes into the Oval last night and he's standing next to Trump at the Resolute desk. And the media is like, Trump is literally looking up at him. He's looking up at him, just trying to diminish Trump. Trump was sitting at the desk because he's the actual president. You can't win, right? What's he supposed to do? Pull up a little kiddie table, one of those little fold-out TV trays for Elon to sit at and give us a presser? He was trying to give us transparency, what the media has been demanding. And Elon stood there for 30 minutes answering all these questions that have been raised by the media on what he's finding, where he's made mistakes, how transparent he's trying to be and how he's bringing it to us. Nothing will ever satisfy them, Adam. I, for one, am amazed that this kind of patriotic citizen will sacrifice of himself in this way when he's got 5, 6, 7, I've lost count, other major businesses to run. And yet you listen to the left and they would think Trump had hired the devil incarnate to gut the most important agencies of this federal government. What do you make of it?
Well, it's funny because the media sort of reminds me of 14-year-old girls and junior high, just sniping at everybody and being so catty and trying to kind of start fights. I don't think they know that people don't take them seriously anymore, or that most Americans don't take them seriously at all. But I was saying to Dr. Drew this morning, because I'm living with Dr. Drew at his house because I cannot return to my house in Malibu. And I was sitting in my little bathrobe on a sofa this morning when he came in, and I was watching Fox, and they were going after, not Fox, but, the Democrats were going after Elon. And they use billionaire like a pejorative now. Like, oh, this billionaire. I mean, they literally, they're going to start using. They're going to start using genius as a pejorative in 10 minutes. They're going to go, this billionaire genius with his billionaire genius friends. And I said to Dr. Drew, they use billionaire like we used to use bum.
Yeah.
They really do. Like in the 70s, we'd say, this guy, this bum comes in here with his buddies, and he's such a bum. They use billionaire like a pejorative. And I'm like, I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with being a billionaire. It probably means you worked a little harder, you're a little bit smarter, and you're a little bit more focused. But it does show you where the media's head's at and where the Democrats' heads are at, and that they think homeless people or illegals are noble, and people that create jobs and pay millions in taxes are the problem.
The strategy by the Democrats seems obvious now. Yes, they're trying to drive a wedge between Trump and Elon because they'd love to see Elon gone. They feel very threatened by the work he's doing. You know, taking a hard look at the bureaucracy and seeing where efficiencies can be found, meaning people can be laid off or fired, or we can reduce the spending, which is the last thing they want. This is all left-wing slush funds throughout these organizations. So they're terrified. That's why they're doing this. They want Elon gone. But their main new Trump 2.0 form of resistance is lawfare. They've filed now over 50 lawsuits to try to stop Trump's executive orders. And what it seems to me as I zoom out a little and look at these, and you tell me what your impression is that we had a Congress that allocated money for various organizations. And instead of just taking that money and like training teachers how to teach, or, helping them improve math scores, they went completely rogue and radical left wing with all these organizations. Yes, from the Department of Education to this USAID and beyond. Now we're starting to see some other organizations, and started funding, like slush funding, DEI initiatives across the country, across the globe, shoving gender ideology down our throats at every turn. And Trump goes in there and says, stop that. I want you to return to core missions. Take all that nonsense out of there. I'm not spending anybody's money on that stuff. I want it taken down, and I want the people who are doing it fired. And they file 50 lawsuits to say, you have to spend the money the way that we told you to, without any acknowledgement that they are not on mission and haven't been for some time.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting if you think about the Democrats. They loved Michael Avenatti and they loved Harvey Weinstein, and they hate Elon Musk. So should we really listen to anything these people have to say about anyone ever? And yes, everything turns and tacks toward the left. The ACLU used to be the ACLU when you and I were young. The Sierra Club, that was just a club of people who cared about the environment, or the Coastal Commission. Those are men and women who were caretakers for the coast. Like every major organization eventually tacks toward the left. I don't know why. It's probably baked in. It's like, why does every college, why does every school teacher and school union, like, why do they all move toward the left? It's free money. Once you get free money, you start moving toward the left. So they've all done it. They did it to themselves. I don't know why they have to do it, but the ACLU is not the ACLU anymore. It's a left-wing radical organization. And so is the Sierra Club, and so is 20 other organizations that started off with some sort of founding mission of, being fair and helping the environment, or helping the citizens, or protecting the Constitution. It all goes left. Whenever you get a bunch of people, a bunch of college-educated people, and a bunch of free money, it goes left.
The lawfare is working in some instances, at least at the first go-round with the federal district court judges, but it's getting out of hand. Yesterday, we saw a judge, it was a George W. Bush appointee, a federal district judge, insist that that the federal government restore the DEI pages that had been taken down at CDC and NIH and another related agency. Because Vivek Murthy, who was Obama's Surgeon General, his group filed a lawsuit saying, doctors really rely on those pages that they didn't take down the CDC website. They didn't take down NIH. They took down select pages pursuant to Trump's anti-DEI order. Like, I don't want the gender ideology crap on government websites. It's non-factual, it's non-scientific, and it's not helpful. And so they actually filed a lawsuit over these websites, and this judge sided with the plaintiffs, saying, you've got to put those websites back to the way they used to be. Now we have federal district court judges policing individual web pages, Adam. I'm sorry, but we've lost the plot. That we should not be in a position where the judiciary, Article 3, can tell Article 2, the president, what web pages he has to have on government agencies.
Well, when Trump did his first term, there were lots of provocateurs, or I should say, a lot of folks inside, saboteurs, that were still inside his circle. He didn't know it, and I don't think he knew what was going on. But there were a lot of people that were there to stop Trump and what he was doing. That was during his first term. His second term, he figured that out, and he weeded them all out of his cabinet in the White House, but they're still strewn about the country in the form of judges and other decision makers who are still very anti-Trump. So it went from a sort of inner circle to now an outer strata of people that we're going to have to do the same process to. We're going to have to weed them out.
Yeah, well, we've got to put our chips on the appellate courts because thank God we on the sign of sanity control the Supreme Court. There's a 6-3 majority for the conservatives. And I think the appellate courts will see the reason here, too. I mean, it's just this is activist for this judge to do this. Here's Trump commenting yesterday at that presser with Musk on these judges trying to stop his EOs.
It seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. We want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation.
The judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda. Will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply with that
Well, I always
order?
abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum. And it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books. If a person's crooked and they get caught, other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes harder later on. So, yeah, the answer is I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's the level at which he is being policed, Adam.
Yeah, I know. It is also, it seems so apparent how earnest Trump is. I know many narcissists have a visceral reaction to it, and they have Trump derangement syndrome, which is really just affects narcissists the most. But versus Biden, remember Biden, like 4 years of just sort of nothing, just ambling, rambling, I don't know what he's talking about, talk ever. Just the notion that Trump could sort of speak English and answer questions and say things that were sensical versus ideological. It's so refreshing to me, but it's strange that it's not refreshing to more Americans.
And the thing is, as you know, Biden, while he was vegetable-like in his outward-facing persona. Behind the scenes, he had very woke left-wing operatives shoving their DEI agenda into every facet of the federal government. All the agencies creating grants and incentives to people they didn't control and outside groups. And now Trump is trying to dismantle that. And now he's getting sued saying, that it's been allocated. The government, they were given this money and funds were allocated. It's like he doesn't have to spend all of this money on the exact program that Biden pushed. Like, it's money for DOE. If Trump doesn't want money at DOE being spent on DEI, he doesn't have to spend it. To the point where, like, when I'm talking about this Vivek Murthy thing, it's a group called Doctors for America. And here's what they're complaining about. These are the couple of web pages that they took down in the wake of Trump's anti-DEI executive orders. A web page for the Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance System. Now, I don't know what was on this page that Trump's team found objectionable, but it was probably something to do with gender or, minority, whatever. Everything is seen through that lens. So Murthy's team comes in and says, information from these web pages is important for understanding the mental health challenges that youth face, including bullying and other safety issues at school. And then they say, as well as the health-related behaviors and exposures such as electronic vaping and cigarettes and their potential effect on mortality. You've got to be kidding me. We now need a judge saying, I guess, health professionals are not going to understand the negative effects of cigarettes or vaping unless Trump puts back up this one page that also had DEI stuff on it. These doctors can't wing it on the dangers of cigarettes and vaping. And the second page was the Environmental Justice Index. The complaint was they delivered information that delivers a single rank for each community to identify and map areas most at risk for the health impacts of environmental burden. Their left-wing Green New Deal agenda is no longer on the federal government's health pages, and these doctors are trying to act like this is some sort of a health crisis, because now where are we going to know the worst risks are for the health impacts of the environmental burden that we've been making up for 20 years?
Yeah, it's funny. These are all process people. They like process. They like paperwork. They like conversations. What could you put on a website that would stop bullying or that would educate the bully or the bullied? It's insane. It's like when you watch the Super Bowl and they run these spots saying "Stop Hate." What exactly does that mean? Who are you speaking to? How's this ever going to work? I mean, thank God you got rid of the end racism in the end zone. But these bizarre platitudes, like everyone has to read a brochure on something. It's insane. We're hurting people, really. They need to get back to a sort of common sense, horse sense, just figure it out yourself. A little autonomy. Kids can figure it out. You don't have to go to a web page and read about vaping.
Plus, as well as I do, this is their favorite thing, is to force us to say and read their words. You will read my thoughts on the environmental catastrophe that we're facing. You will read my thoughts on DEI and gender. And it doesn't matter if I shoved them on some page that also speaks about cigarettes and vaping. The whole page must be saved because I need you and everyone to read my thoughts on gender. That's what they're pissed about. They're starting to lose the war on language control.
Well, that's the whole plan. The whole plan is win the war of language and control everyone. Once you get the language, then you get the control. And that's why they pervert the language. When Gavin Newsom came into this studio and said, half of Hispanic and half of blacks in California don't have access to checking accounts. It's like, what do you mean you don't have access? They have access. They choose not to get them. Well, first off, you're lying. It's not half. It's not close to half. But they say things like access. Like Hobby Lobby has denied access to birth control. It's like they don't deny access to it. They're not paying for it. I don't pay for lunch around here for my coworkers on a daily basis. Sometimes I do, but generally they're in charge of their own lunch. But I don't deny them access to a sandwich. They can get it themselves. So they take the language and they pervert it. I mean, they go from illegal alien to, undocumented worker. Now it's undocumented American. So it's just basically someone who was born in the United States who left their passport in the bathroom when they're at the airport. It's insane. Now, obviously, the reason they have to pervert the language is because their argument doesn't make sense otherwise. So when they, denying women health care, it's like, well, not health care. We're against abortion, not health care. That's different. Even when they talk about when I was watching, I think Chris Hayes on Bill Maher the other day making an ass of himself saying, well, you want to deny my transgender child health care. No, we want to deny your 13-year-old from cutting off their penis. That's not denying health care. If your transgender child has appendicitis, then we would like them to have their appendix removed. But it's not denying health care to your transgender. And the reason they have to pervert the language is because their argument is retarded, and it wouldn't make sense otherwise.
Yeah, it's the same way they make us call he's, she's, so that we're in the position of saying she can't come into the women's locker room. She can't come into the bathroom and undermine our argument right from the get-go. It's all part of the same game.
It's all part of the confusion game, too. Like when the LA Times was reporting a story a couple of years ago in LA, you may have heard about it, where some 25-year-old dude went to a Denny's bathroom and raped a 9-year-old girl. But now the 25-year-old dude identifies as a woman and their pronouns are they. So when they tell the story at the LA Times, they go, well, the 9-year-old girl went to the bathroom and then she came into the bathroom and they pulled out their phallus. And it's like, they... She, are these two people? Like, it's all there for you to go, listen, I'm out. Do what you want. Yeah. It takes some money. I'm going home.
Okay, so that leads me to, I may get back to Elon in a bit, but this is a great segue into what's happening in Worcester, Massachusetts. Now, we know Massachusetts is liberal, right? But they used to be not so far left that they wouldn't elect a Republican governor, remember those days? Or even a Republican senator. Remember Scott Brown back in the Bush years? Now they've just gone around the bend. And Worcester, Mass. voted yesterday to make their city a sanctuary city for trans people, meaning they're not going to comply with any of President Trump's mandates, EOs. I mean, good luck. This is flouting the law. And we'll see how that works out for you. But I would love for you to take a look at what the people look like and how they sound in Worcester, Mass., where this resolution to make Worcester, Mass. A sanctuary city for trans people passed overwhelmingly because of testimonials like these.
I need the city to protect me because the federal government won't. And if you think you're afraid of Trump, you should see how afraid of Trump I am.
I don't want to be here.
Up, please?
I'm sorry, am I taking too long pleading for my life?
You remembered how many children I have and that 2 of them are trans.
I speak as both the B and the T in the LGBT.
I'm multiply disabled. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that causes me immense physical pain. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I have narcolepsy, and I couldn't drive myself here, so I had to hide from my driver that I was in drag, which is not an easy thing to do in drag.
I want to spend an hour applying glitter on my face so that you will hear and see me.
Can you look at me and tell me how many of my friends need to die before you do anything?
Please wrap up.
Look at me.
Okay, we're all done here.
Fucking pathetic.
No, we're all done.
worked. How can you, the narcolepsy and the autism and some sort of syndrome that gives nerve pain, and it's hard to put the glitter on in the morning. And the one guy he's clearly a man wearing like a beanie, but his hair is long. He's like, I constantly get misgendered. You're like, wait, what? Are you even trying to look female? Is that there? This is not a well group, but they are still winning in places like Worcester, Mass, which is just a little like a microcosm of explanation on how these insane policies got shoved into these agencies to begin with, Adam.
Yeah. It's not narcolepsy, it's narcissism. That's all these people are narcissists, a supreme narcissists. They sit around and they go, me, I have this, what about me? They think Trump is a narcissist because he wears three-piece suits and puts on spray tan and has a pinky ring. But the real narcissism is the world is coming for me. They want me dead. They can't take me. That's a supreme narcissism. And also, no one ever talks about it, but most of these people were victims growing up. There's a lot of sexual abuse and a lot of victimizing as a very young person that then translates into what you just saw as an adult. And if anyone brings that up, it's a hate crime. But from doing Loveline for 10 years, I've heard all the stories and I've seen a lot of it. These are people that were most likely molested and victimized as young people. Then they got scrambled. Then they got unleashed on us. And now we have to listen to them. Really what they need is containment. They don't need people agreeing with them or accommodating them. They need guardrails. It's essentially the same thing the homeless community needs. They don't need compassion and understanding. They need tough love, zip ties, and a cot and a place to sober up.
Yeah, I'm really hoping they all just stay in Worcester. Great. Good. Take them. Terrific. By the way, it's not just Worcester. There's one in Sacramento, California, one of these sanctuary cities for trans people. Ithaca, New York, not far from my own people, upstate New York. Courtesy to ALX on Twitter or X for that montage. He got an access code and listened to that whole hearing, and what was a gift to us all by showing us what's happening there. These are not well people. I mean, on this council, there's one person who's their first openly non-binary member ever elected to city council in 2022. And this person has already stopped showing up at the meetings saying they're transphobic. This city council that just voted 9-2 in favor of those lunatics who paraded in front of them, they don't want to show up, this non-binary member, because they think it's a transphobic group. They didn't like the pronouns. They said one council member called this person it several times. I mean, in that council member's defense, it's very confusing. No one knows what to call most of these people. Normally, the listening audience knows, I'll describe to you what we're seeing on the screen so you can have the visuals in your head. That's impossible. You have to just go to YouTube, go to 28 after the hour, and you look for yourself at the parade of horribles that just showed up in that. But it's not there. We have to forge on without these people. All these pages should be scrubbed. This ideology should be snuffed out. We should stop pretending that it's real for these children. Like, it's amazing to me that we still have people pretending this is an actual thing and we need to cater to the woman with the narcolepsy and the autism spectrum and the whatever nerve disease and the one worried about putting glitter on their face, whatever. It seemed like a woman with a beard and glitter. Why aren't we already just forging on without them? Or are we?
I think everyone is scared of being called prejudiced, and they're scared of being called something phobic, and they're also scared of being labeled as old and set in their ways. We just got essentially burned during COVID by just a bunch of scared people. The New York Times just came out with an article about how bad it was to shut down schools for as long as we did. And most people wanted their kids to go to school, but were scared to say anything. So, fear has turned into a driving force, and these people understand it. Like they understand that they're going to be loud. They're going to be in your face. You know, they have these city council meetings at 1:00 on a Tuesday. Normal people are working. Normal people are holding a job down and paying taxes. It's these unemployable freak shows that show up, make the most noise while the rest of us are at work. And then the city council just goes, I don't want to deal with this. Like anyone who has a child who's a loud child and they have another child who's a quiet child, they'll end up siding with the loud child just so they don't have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this brings me to a group. It's a government union called the American Federation of Government Employees. And they are very upset about DOGE and these cuts to federal spending, whether it's in the form of invited retirements, early retirements, or spending cuts. And they might as well have just gone directly to Worcester, Mass. And recruited from that collection for their little rally. You never would have known the difference. Here they were trying to rally their troops to march against Elon and Trump. Take a look at these folks in SOT 9.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Trump's coming for our unions. He wants us all to fail. He wants us to bow to him, but we want him in jail. Oh, which side are you on?
Adam, I think Elon's
thoughts.
probably scared. What do you think? Trump, he's scared.
You know, it is. I'll tell you what it reminds me of. So when you see Chuck Schumer and Aunt Esther, who's Maxine Waters from Sanford and Son, and all these other idiots out there, like these 75-year-olds, 80-year-olds, like waving their canes. And you know how, Chuck Schumer does that thing where it's like, you will not be able to hide. You will feel our wrath. We are coming for you. We'll fight in the streets and we'll fight in the courts. And it's got to be amusing to Elon Musk and Trump as it is to us, these weird threats. But you know what it reminded me of? I was watching it the other day. During the first, I think it was Desert Storm, back in the day when we would plan to invade Iraq or Iran or some Middle Eastern country, at some point, one of their religious clerics or mullahs would take to the microphone and go, if you Americans come in here, you will feel the sting of Allah's sword upon your neck. And then we go, all right, now let's get some A-10 warthogs and light you guys up. And that's what we would do. And so it's always weird that they make these big proclamations, but there's nothing to them and they can't do anything. And I don't think we feel any fear from idiots breaking into song or making idle threats. But the comical part is they don't know how comical they are. Like they must know on some level that they're being laughed at, right?
Oh, I've got to show you. I've got to show you this woman, Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, a Democrat from Oregon who was at the rally where they were singing. Speaking of just, they don't know how dumb they sound. Listen to her.
I've been told I have 30 seconds, so I am going to tell you that we do have to, I don't swear in public very well, but we have to fuck Trump. Please don't tell my children that I just did that.
I'm not sure. Not sure she understands what she said or her core message there, Adam.
So. Yeah. Well, like I said, I used to host a show called Loveline, so I understand what she meant.
Yeah, do you think it was like a Freudian slip? She's actually desiring that. It just kind of came out.
There is a thing from the schoolyard from when we were kids, when you would tug on the pigtail of the girl and say, I hate you, it meant I love you, right? So I think there could be that psychodynamic at play. Also, it's crazy because there's a lot of swearing going on. There was swearing.
A lot of swearing.
And they also
Wait, can you hold that thought? Because
Yes.
I just have one more. I have one more montage to show you, and it's
Please.
got swearing. To your point, look at this.
We will fight it out in the courts. We will fight it out across this country. And I promise you, we will win.
About stealing the personal data of Americans, and it is about taking a lifetime of earned benefits, your Social Security benefits, and turning it into a Bitcoin bank.
You're not going to sit around while you go ahead and desecrate our Constitution. We are going to be in your face. We are going to be on your asses. You and your little friend off of Twitter. Y'all about to find out, all right?
We will win. We will win. We won't rest. We won't rest.
Elon Musk, where are you? Bring your ass over here. Why does Elon Musk want to get rid of all of this? Because he's a thief. He's a gangster.
We have to fuck Trump and be on your asses, and Elon Musk needs to bring his ass over. I'm sensing a theme. Here.
But they also seem hysterical, unhinged, and just sort of unqualified. You know what I mean? Like it's not the profanity per se, although that makes them seem, a little, it seems beneath them, especially since their average age is 77 and a half. But they also just seem incompetent. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the head of the FAA, got up there and said, these stupid planes with the goddamn air traffic controller people, like, fuck them because of the stupid landing gear or whatever you call it. Like, you go, well, that person seems like an idiot. And the person, they don't seem qualified, right? They don't make any sense. And also it's like, Elon Musk, come down here. Like it's, like you're in the UFC and Elon's in the crowd and you're challenging him to a fight. It's insane, but it's comical. It's all I can say.
You're so right. That's such a good observation. Fuck those pilots.
Stupid heads with their dumb cockpit thing or wherever they sit. Their steering wheel or it's called a yoke.
Gotta
yoke.
F them in the ass.
Yeah, F them.
Wait, what?
Stupid American Airlines, the dumb DC-9s or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
They should come down here so I can punch them, but they're scared.
We were days away. If Kamala Harris had won, we were days away from that.
Oh my God.
Contrast that with Elon Musk, okay, who at that presser yesterday was just like methodically going through the issues that he was discovering, he and his team. Here he is on why the Treasury Department just pays. They just pay everything, even if it's a suspect bill. With our money, watch.
Common sense controls that should be present that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest.
Let's get him! Get on his ass! He's just kind of helping us understand.
Well, it's to the point where, it was AOC who called him stupid, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so they're done. They're out of stuff. And they don't realize what they sound like when they talk that way. But I guess part of being dumb is not knowing you're dumb, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it tends to lead most people to be happy. Most people I know that seem very dumb seem happy because they don't really know what they're missing. These people are miserable. They have the worst combination, dumb and unhappy, and bitter and mean. That's not a good combo. And speaking of dumb, unhappy, bitter, and mean, I wanted to touch base on Gavin Newsom because what's happened out in California, where you live now, is we saw the administrator for the local, parks and rebuilding say it's going to take a minimum of 18 months to clear the burned houses and comply with EPA and do what they needed to do to sort of rectify this site so that building can start again. And Trump said, absolutely not. That's too long, and issued an executive order compelling the Department of Defense and EPA and others to get in there and work to rectify this thing, to make it go much faster. And lo and behold, it's working. Now, in the wake of this, let's see, it's called Expediting Waste Removal. His executive order on January 24th not only provides water resources, but improves the disaster response. Secretary of Homeland Security was the other group, and FEMA, saying, get in there, develop a plan to expedite the bulk removal of contaminated and general debris. They can't be waiting a year and a half for that to happen. LA Times recently reports it's working. They say federal agencies have tripled the number of hazardous materials teams heading out to the Palisades and Eaton burn areas. They also laid plans for having the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers work simultaneously on different parts of the same site as part of the effort to speed things up. By midweek, LA County officials were offering a more accelerated debris removal timeline. EPA's phase 1 started at projected 3 months. It's now shortened to 30 days. The one Republican supervisor who's on the committee out there said President Trump doesn't mess around and gave him credit for it. And now you've got Gavin Newsom taking a victory lap, saying this is the fastest large-scale debris removal operation in modern state history. The speed of this cleanup is unprecedented. We're cutting through the red tape to ensure this recovery moves at a record pace. No thanks to him, Adam.
I was there yesterday. So yesterday, for the first time, I went to my home, my neighborhood, and it is total and utter devastation. I can send you a few pictures, but take my word for it. It was just the surface of the moon, but it's been over 30 days. People keep saying to me, when are you going back? Because my place didn't burn. Many places around, most of the places around my place burned, but my place is intact. And the answer is I have no answer, and nobody has any answers. The water's back on, but the power's still off. And there's no website where they'll tell you when you can move back to your home. I've been living out of a suitcase for over a month now. There was no signs of any cleanup of any kind. There were lots of workers, lots of National Guardsmen, lots of folks doing what would be probably line work, repairing phone lines, telephone poles, power poles, things of that nature. But there was zero dump trucks, zero bulldozers or bobcats. There was zero debris removal. So along PCH and up in the hills where I was yesterday, and I traveled the entire Pacific Coast Highway, at least the burn zone, and the hills, and I saw everything yesterday. And they're 35 days in, zero removal of debris.
Wow. And that's with the EO and the additional federal response. Well, Gavin Newsom is ready to spike the ball and take credit on all of it. In the minute we have left, how's your time going on Dr. Drew's couch with what you describe as your little bathrobe?
Well, I'm enjoying my time at Dr. Drew's house, but I'm starting to feel self-conscious because I'm eating all his protein bars and drinking all his coffee. And I actually got the offer from attorney Mark Garagos, who you know, to move into his guest house down the street. So I think I told him last night, I think I'm going to take him up on that.
Do you guys watch TV together at night? Do you do like Real Housewives marathons? What do you do?
We don't like spoon every night, if that's what you're saying. But yeah, it's winter out here and it gets cold in the foothills. So I'm not going to apologize.
That's amazing. He's a good friend. So is Garagos. I'm glad your house didn't burn. I realize it's not that much of a consolation when it's completely covered in smoke and not habitable. So Godspeed. Thanks for being here, Adam. All the best.
Thanks, Megyn.
We're coming up next with Ana Kasparian. Don't miss her. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and it just stepped up enforcement for 2025. Oh, joy. If you owe back taxes or you have unfiled returns, don't panic and don't wait for the IRS to come to you. Simply avoiding your tax troubles is the worst thing you can do. Getting ahead of this is the smart move, but you might not want to contact the IRS alone, but you don't need me to tell you that. You could just turn this whole matter over to the team at Tax Network USA. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, and this means they know which agents to deal with and which to avoid. Tax Network USA has proven strategies that are designed to settle your tax problems in your favor, whether you owe 10 grand or 10 million. Their attorneys and negotiators have resolved over 1 billion in tax debt. Speak with one of their strategists for free and stop the threatening letters and stop looking over your shoulder and put your IRS troubles behind you once and for all. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. That's tnusa.com/MEGYN. I just want to give you a quick update on two things that have happened. This is just breaking. 3 more people have been released from Belarus. Just trying to get my arms around the news right here. One is a U.S. citizen who wants to remain private. 2 are non-Americans, including a Radio Liberty journalist. So here we have at least 1 U.S. citizen now released from Belarus, most of us didn't even know that there was an American citizen being held in Belarus. And this is on the heels of another U.S. citizen being released by Russia. His name is Marc Fogel, thanks to the work of Donald Trump. He was over there teaching the children of diplomats and had been there for quite some time. And he got arrested because he had marijuana, which he said he uses for medical purposes. He had 17 grams of marijuana. That actually led me to look up on my phone, how much is 17 grams of marijuana? You know me, I don't know anything about these drugs, but I did look up how much is 17 grams of marijuana, and 14 grams is a half ounce, and it looks like this. I don't know if you can see this on my phone, but it looks like basically a bowl of lettuce that you might put in a salad, maybe enough for 2 people to have a salad. And they say that 14 ounces could basically get you 28 joints. Now, this guy was using it, he says, for medicinal purposes, but the Russians, as they have been known to do, decided to say that he was going to distribute it. He was basically there in Russia to become some sort of a drug dealer with what could turn into 28 joints. I mean, it wasn't going to be a very lengthy career. I think he'd been over there for some 15 years. So they took this guy, this American citizen, Marc Fogel, they put him behind bars, and the Biden administration completely forgot about this guy. They didn't even designate him with the special sort of status that would demand that we look into what's happening to him and start bargaining for his return. They just kind of pretended that Marc Fogel didn't exist from the point he got arrested. Meantime, after he was arrested in August 2022, they negotiated for first they designated Brittany Griner, that basketball player, as illegal detained. They didn't do it for Fogel. And then they went on to negotiate for Brittany's release, but they didn't do that for this guy Fogel. A bipartisan group of U.S. senators lobbied the State Department to change his status so that he would be more likely to, qualify for a negotiated release. Biden wouldn't. It's been really strange how this guy's been completely left behind. Then this guy Fogel's mom, Malphine Fogel, age 95, showed up at the Pennsylvania campaign rally where Trump was nearly assassinated. And she told the New York Post that she explained to Trump that her son was in a Russian jail for the same crime Brittany Griner committed. Griner was in jail for 10 months before President Biden got her out. She said, "My son's been there for 3 years, and I haven't heard from President Biden or from anyone in Washington. Mr. Trump told me If I get in, I will get him out, and gave me a thumbs up. He was very cordial and sincere. And finally, in August of 2024, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan described Fogel as wrongfully detained. That was the first they'd ever done that, putting him back like on the block for negotiations. It's just ridiculous. And still, remember that prisoner swap in August of 2024 when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris showed up? And it was like, who's trying to take credit for this? What's happening? He was not negotiated for, and he was not part of that prisoner swap. It's where we got the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan Gershkovich, back. Nope, left this guy Fogel behind. And guess what? Trump's been in office for 3 weeks, and he got him. He got him back. It's amazing. Here's the video of him greeting Marc Fogel at the White House yesterday. Wow. Well, here he is outside of Air Force One. So his mom is thrilled. Malphine Fogel said thank you to Fox via an interview. Here's the proper video. She said thank you to Trump on an interview with Fox yesterday. Take a listen to that in SOT 13.
There's a chance he's watching or will see this. What would you like to say to President Trump?
I would like to thank him profusely. He promised me he would get him out, and he kept his promise. And I can't thank him enough, and Secretary Rubio also, and anybody else who's had a hand in this. I'm sure there were quite a few that got the ball rolling, but I particularly want to thank President Trump.
Amazing. And here, look at this extraordinary tape. Here is Marc Fogel in the White House. This guy didn't even know that he was about to get released. 24 hours later, he's with the president in the White House. And here's what he had to say.
I will forever be indebted to President Trump, to Steve over there. What a dynamic man this guy is.
That's true.
And
Steve Wickoff.
I'm a middle-class school teacher who's now in a dream world.
We're going to show you the Lincoln bedroom in a little while.
And I'm so happy to be back here. And I wish I could articulate it better.
You've done beautifully. And he's got a great mother. And when I saw the mother at a rally, she said, if you win, will you get my son out? And I promised. She's 95 years old. And I said, we'll get him out. And we got him out.
Wow. And he did. And now another American, still anonymous as of now, out of Belarus. I mean, this is amazing. Trump is on a roll, folks. We'll see if he gets any credit from the left for that. Here he is kissing the ground when he got off the plane. If he gets any credit for this from the left. I will say, credit where it's due, John Fetterman praised him. The guy, Fogel's from Pennsylvania. So did Josh Shapiro. Didn't exactly praise Trump, but said thank you to those at the White House who made his release possible. And President Obama's former Russian ambassador, Michael McFaul, he praised Trump directly. And I mean, it was explicit. Praise be to President Donald Trump. Not a phrase I get to say very often. I give him a lot of credit for doing it. I want to talk to Ana Kasparian now. She is host and executive producer of the Young Turks, and she's editor of the Unaligned Substack. Been on the program once before. Ana, welcome back. What do you make of this? It's amazing to see these Americans, all but forgotten, slowly but surely returning home.
Well, I agree with you about forgotten Americans who have either been held hostage by, authoritarian governments abroad. It's terrible. So when I see that photo of Marc Fogel kissing the ground, kissing America, essentially, it's an emotional moment. And this is one of the good things that the Trump administration has managed to do in the few short weeks that he's been in office for his second term. So credit where credit is due. Absolutely.
It does make you wonder why didn't we try harder under Joe Biden? What was the problem? Because we had Rick Grenell just got 6 Americans back home, Belarus now releasing one, Russia releasing Marc Fogel, American hostages being held by Hamas. Was it just a lack of caring? It was this is how happening. Literally, he hasn't even been in office a month.
Well, Megyn, let me just tell you, while Biden was still in office, one of the things that really infuriated me was the story of a young American citizen, Isanur Aigi, who was actually protesting with some activists in the West Bank in regard to the high civilian death toll in Gaza. And Israeli snipers shot and killed her. And the Biden administration did not care. They pretended as though, the Israeli officials had launched an investigation into it, and then we never heard about it again. That was an American citizen, one of our own. And I just think it's unacceptable. So I wholeheartedly agree with anyone who's upset with any government official or administration that leaves our American citizens either in the hands of an authoritarian, government or left to die with no real investigation and no real justice. That is not leadership. So I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with the case to which you referred, but there's no question, despite our closeness with Israel, when the IDF behaves terribly, they should be held to account, and they shouldn't be in some special category where they're incapable of being criticized. That's not what friendship is. They were talking about an American citizen. That comes first. What they're saying about Fogel is that we did do a prisoner swap for him. We gave up some, alleged, I can't remember if it was an arms dealer. It wasn't a great guy. He was in prison over here from Russia. But what is it, Deb? Sorry? Cybercrime? Oh, cybercrime. All right. So that's not great, but maybe not as bad as arms dealer. And these things they always require that kind of a thing. It's like, look, 1 and 1, that's pretty good if you compare to like what's happening with Palestine and Israel right now, where they have to release like hundreds to get like 2 Americans out. I just feel like none of this stuff was ever held against Joe Biden. You never heard about it in the media. This isn't the kind of thing that the media gives 2 shits about, and that they're not going to give Trump any credit for. And it's just relatively minor example of his deal making, which they kind of mock a lot in the press, but it can be very effective.
Right. I mean, look, I want to get our Americans back, right? So if you have to make those types of deals, it is what it is. And I'm sorry, leaving an American middle school teacher to die in a Russian prison or Belarusian prison, if you're talking about the other hostages that have been released, is unacceptable. And so if you're willing to release someone who's accused of cyber crimes in order to get an American citizen back, I do think that's a deal worth taking. And to your point about how there wasn't really much attention paid to these issues, especially, the story of the woman that I'm talking about, the protester in the West Bank who was shot and killed. I don't know if it's because of the political leanings of the individuals hired at these media organizations. Because look, now Donald Trump is in office, and there is no shortage of critical reporting about his administration. And I think there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's fact-based and rooted in evidence. But I feel that they kind of treated the Biden administration with kid gloves, just kind of took what the Biden administration had to say at face value. I mean, look, the perfect example is the very obvious cover-up of Biden's mental decline. It wasn't something new. There were complaints about that. I remember on the Young Turks, we were concerned about that in 2020 when he was running for his first term. And members of the media shut anyone down if they dared to question Biden's mental acuity, his ability to carry out the duties of a president. And so I think that there's a real reckoning taking place right now in regard to our legacy media outlets. There are some changes being made because they've lost audiences, they've lost subscribers and readers. People are resorting to other independent sources to get their information because they have realized that they haven't been getting the full story. And look, I think one of the other big issues here is, even in the context of independent media sources, they do tend to lean in one, political direction or the other. And when people are served up one side, we live in 2 different realities. And I think we need to do a better job speaking with each other, ensuring that we are giving the audiences that trust us and the readers who read our work all the perspectives involved in any political debate, so they're fully informed and they can decide for themselves where they land on the issue. I don't think Americans are getting that right now.
Totally agree. And on that score, I'm going to ask you what you think Trump's doing well and what he's doing poorly in 1 second, but I just want to make one other point about Marc Fogel. He was apparently very depressed. He was sentenced to 15 years in a Russian prison for this 17 grams. And when he wasn't part of the prisoner swap that Biden was part of in August of 2024, the Daily Wire obtained the audio tape of him talking about how his soul was dead. He said, "My soul is dead." He said, "I'm in a bottomless pit that keeps getting worse." And Michael McFaul, former Russia ambassador under Obama too, was saying he wasn't doing well. He was very depressed. He was not handling his circumstances well. So I don't even know how close this guy was to the end of his life, potentially. He had 2 kids. He has a wife. He never would have seen his mom again had he served out this term. It's a wonderful day that he is back home. Okay, so that's that story. Let's switch gears. So we talked in the first hour with Adam Carolla about how the left is very unhappy about Elon Musk, Doge, and the cuts happening to government workers, staff numbers and budgets. So how do you think Trump is doing, and what do you make of Elon so far?
Well, look, I certainly do have some concerns about the conflicts of interest that Elon Musk obviously has. I mean, he's a very successful businessman. He has multiple successful businesses. And look, I get it. He's already super wealthy, and people think, oh, he's not going to abuse the power that's been given to him by Trump because he doesn't need any more money. That doesn't matter. I mean, look, the most important thing, the most valuable thing that tech CEOs want is data. Data is power. Data fuels their businesses. And so the idea that someone like Elon Musk, who is in the tech industry, having all this access to our private personal information makes me incredibly uneasy. I also, by the way, agree that there is waste in our federal government. There is bureaucracy that needs to be cut down in our federal government. And if you go back to the Clinton administration, I mean, he got rid of hundreds of thousands of federal workers. And I think that did bode well for our economy. I mean, that was the last time we had an economic surplus in the United States. Now, of course, he implemented higher taxes for the top marginal tax rate and stuff like that. But when it came to getting rid of the bureaucracy under the Clinton administration, there was more of a review process. And it wasn't this, blind cutting of entire, departments or agencies. And so I wish there was more method to it, more of a review to ensure that we're actually getting rid of individuals that we don't really necessarily need in our government. I don't like the fact that he has Elon Musk didn't do this, but Russell Vought, who's now the head of the Office of Management and Budget and the deputy head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, has effectively halted all operations at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I do not agree with that at all. That's literally the only federal government agency that's doing oversight of how the big banks are treating American citizens. They've returned $21 billion to Americans who have been defrauded by financial institutions. So that's where I have the biggest disagreement right now. But in regard to, doing an overview of what's happening with USAID, I have no problem with that. I think that there were good programs mixed in with a lot of waste and a lot of bad programs. And hopefully we can bring those good programs back. Because, building alliances and relationships through soft power, especially in African countries, which China is competing with us in, basically having influence on, I think that's something we need to be considerate of. I mean, the Chinese want to have access to minerals, natural resources, all sorts of things that the United States wants in Africa. And so when we cut down on programs that specifically help, individuals who are suffering from AIDS, HIV, things like that, malaria, well, we're basically destroying a relationship that's not just beneficial to the individuals we're helping in these countries, but also beneficial for the United States and our own economic interests.
So I think that's a fair point. And I actually think that there's not really a desire by Trump or anybody else to cut the funding we were doing for women and their babies who are born with HIV. I actually think that just got swept up because the whole program was such a mess and had been so corrupted. It was no, we're stopping it. And I think that will probably come back. not only because it's the right thing to do, but because we do worry about China stepping in and becoming like the big brother and getting more closely aligned with these countries that right now are grateful to the United States for all the help that we give to them. It's just that it got so corrupted by all these other weird far left DEI things that they were like, let's just it's stopping right now, and then we can start again. And I think that will start again. But let's talk about this Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which I think most people don't even really know anything about, to be honest with you. But it was started, it's kind of an Elizabeth Warren project. It was started after the big bank meltdown in 2008 to try to make sure something like that doesn't happen again, where there's this collusion within the financial industry on mortgages or something related that winds up really screwing over the consumers in many instances, first with the mortgages and the collapse, and then with us having to bail out the banks. The hope is that they'd protect something like that from happening, prevent it from happening again. But so on Friday, Elon Musk posted on his X page saying, CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, RIP, with the tombstone emoji. The CFPB's X account has since been deleted. And Trump also announced that they are closing the offices of the CFPB for the coming week. And Russell Vogt, director of OMB, said that he ordered the staff there to cease all supervision and examination activity and cease all stakeholder engagement, and said he would not take the next drawdown of funding from the Federal Reserve for this group. So they say that this is why they did it. The White House put out a statement saying this is another one of those agencies that's just lost its way, right? Like it's not doing just the main thing that I think you and I are happy for them to do. They say this: CFPB used its slush fund collected from targeting these financial institutions to support radical advocacy groups. One such group is the Soros-backed Mississippi Center for Justice, which advocates for racial and economic justice, targets religious liberty, assists illegal immigrants seeking to skirt our nation's law. Another is the Legal Aid Society of D.C., whose board features senior left-wing officials, has lobbied hundreds of thousands of times for more welfare spending. That the group threatened banks for refusing to lend to illegal immigrants. They targeted Chicago small business after it complained about the city's rampant crime. It was accused of mining Americans' citizens' personal financial information, with a 2017 Inspector General report raising significant concerns about data security, et cetera, et cetera. They're saying the same thing happened here as happened to USAID, which is why they're doing those things that I listed at the top.
Yeah, so let me just preface this by saying I don't take anything that the left says at face value. I also don't take anything the right says at face value. So there have been instances where the right has claimed something. The left says, no, that's not happening. I look into it, and it turns out the right is actually correct. In fact, USAID is a perfect example. There were incredibly wasteful programs within USAID, as Democrats pretend like there were no wasteful programs. And so the CFPB is something that I have been kind of passionate about throughout my career. I was supportive of it being developed. It was Elizabeth Warren's project before she was even a senator. She wasn't in the Senate at the time. And she really had to push Barack Obama, who was insanely friendly to the banks, to actually do something on behalf of the American people who had been defrauded and who had been preyed upon by the big banks in the lead up to the 2008 economic collapse. So all the claims that you listed, I have looked into, and they are unfounded. Okay, so how the CFPB operates is they receive money from the Federal Reserve, not from taxpayers. So the Federal Reserve allocates about $700 million so they can carry out investigations of wrongdoing by, payday lenders, big banks, you get the picture, or other financial institutions. Through that money, which is honestly a small sum, they have been able to return $21 billion to Americans who had been defrauded or screwed over or ripped off by the banks. Other things that they've done is they have basically made it so your medical debt cannot be used on your credit report to prevent you from being able to rent a home, an apartment. They've ensured that overdraft fees are not predatory, and they're capped at $8 as opposed to $35.
I saw that. That's good.
So they've done some really, really good things on behalf of the American people. Look, I am disgusted with our federal government. Okay. All these federal agencies have not carried out what their intended duties have been. I think that they have kind of lost their way in some cases. And I do agree that there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of waste. The CFPB is not an example of that. And I'm really saddened to see that there's a real effort here to essentially dismantle it. And I was listening to
why do you think
Federal
they're doing
Reserve
that?
Chair.
If you don't, and I'll
tell you
have
why.
not looked beyond the White House's assertions that these are problems and that's what they're trying. So I'll take your word for now that you've looked into it and you don't believe they're viable, that they're true. But why do you, if that's true, then why are they doing this?
So I'll tell you why. I'm most concerned about the influence that the tech industry and tech CEOs have on the Trump administration. So people like Mark Andreessen, for instance, he went on Joe Rogan's podcast and he claimed that the CFPB is debanking people when it's actually the opposite. The CFPB goes after banks that debank individuals over their political leanings or political views. They actually have gone out of their way to try to protect Americans who have been debanked. The CFPB, though, does go after individuals who are engaging in things like money laundering, right? Who are maybe part of the fintech industry and are using that sector to carry out nefarious actions. And so they don't want a cop on the block. And these are people who have been cozying up to Trump. And that is really concerning because I think Trump has some good ideas, but he's also very transactional. And so if these individuals have donated a significant sum of money to his campaign, well, he's going to return the favor in some way. And so that's what I'm most worried about. If American people notice that there's no cop watching what Wall Street's up to, that might end up ricocheting onto Donald Trump, and it might actually hurt him politically. So we'll see what happens. But CFPB was, again, one of the only federal government agencies that was looking out for the best interests of Americans who were getting ripped off by big banks.
It's very interesting. That's a good alternate side of it. What did you make of Elon at the White House yesterday? Because he was up there sort of serially going through some of the things that have been said about him and then some of the things that he says he's finding. And one of the most interesting things was he was talking about how it's so hard to fire people, about how there's a maximum of 10,000 people who can be fired from the federal government in a month because they have to go through some just antiquated exchange of forms that goes down literally into a mine, like an actual mine. Well, I'll let him explain it. Stand by. It's SOT 3.
Well, if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government. And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy?
I think that's very effective, right? It sounds crazy. And I think the average person staying at home is like drinking this in, right? Like, wow, here are pictures of the mine. This is so weird. Why are we doing this in such an antiquated way? This is not a good use of our taxpayer dollars.
Wow. Yeah, look, I haven't looked into his claims, so I don't know for sure if the way he described it is entirely accurate. I think there are two things happening here, right? So there is the message, right? And so I think a lot of what he says needs to be fact checked, and I haven't been able to do that yet.
By the way, there are a lot of fact checks by the left of Elon today saying it's true.
Interesting. Okay. So that's fascinating. But I want to just talk about the optics and the politics of what happened last night, because I know that Democrats are being super critical because at the end of the day, Elon Musk is a billionaire. He's got conflicts of interest. And so it's rich to hear someone like Elon Musk tell us, just trust me, we're doing everything right. It's all above board. At the same time, though, when you compare what appears to be quite a bit of transparency in this new Trump administration versus the lack of transparency we received during the Biden administration, well, I mean, optically speaking, I think most Americans are going to have this sense that, you know, Trump is telling the truth. He wants to be honest with us. He's calling it like it is. You know, he's constantly in the media, constantly doing press conferences. And so I think that is an important thing for the Democratic Party to maybe soak in and realize, you know, if you're going to try to hide from your voters, if you're going to try to hide the ball from your base, it's not going to bode well for you. The optics of transparency is important. Actually being transparent is more important. And so it really remains to be seen if Elon Musk was telling the truth about everything he said during that Oval Office press conference. But again, I just want to reiterate, I don't feel comfortable with someone who's still very much invested in these private businesses, you know, seeming to call the shots when no one elected him. I also didn't like the optics of Donald Trump kind of like quietly sitting at a desk with Elon Musk kind of hovering above him and kind of commanding the room. I feel like that looked a little bad, but I'm curious.
But only because Trump let him command the room. I mean, it was no different from when I appeared at the Trump rally in Pittsburgh and Trump stepped away from the microphone and then said, "Go ahead, Megyn," and he was standing off to the side. It didn't make me look like the president. It's like I had the mic because he gave it to me, and I would lose the mic if he said, "Stop talking." Same as Elon. I will say this. This is Washington Examiner and Washington Post this morning. Washington Examiner, the mine complex is owned by Iron Mountain, which leases out caverns for storage. And we were using Manhattan mini storage all those years in New York. The government moved its old records there in 1960. The mine, which holds employees in the government's Office of Personnel Management, has been trying to revolutionize its process for decades without success. The government's been trying to automate the mine's work since at least 1981. At least $100 million has been spent on the effort to automate the work there, and it's not happening. Washington Post reported from inside the mine in 2014, the 5-step process for a worker's retirement papers just to be fully processed, like just to get them and process them. First step, a worker files the retirement paper and the paperwork is shipped to the facility. Once it arrives, a worker must match it up to other paper records or scan them into a digital database. All the paperwork must be placed into a file. Missing paperwork must be acquired from other federal agencies. That paperwork is then turned into a digital file, reviewed separately by another employee. It took at least 61 days on average then, the same amount of time it took in 1977, when I am going to guess you were not even born. This is so sad. I mean, I think people get it's just right that the government sucks. And this is part of why Trump got elected, right? It's like you don't expect him to do it perfectly. You don't expect it to be all T's dotted or all I's dotted and T's crossed. But you want the bull going into this China shop and saying, why the F are we using a mine that we were using in 1977?
Yeah. And look, we all know what we pay in taxes every year. And it is incredibly frustrating to see where the money actually gets spent, how little of it goes toward modernizing our systems, and essentially how little of it goes to making the lives of American citizens better. There is a lot of waste. I mean, look, one of the main things that drives me crazy is how year after year, with little debate, the Congress approves more and more money for the Pentagon. I mean, the defense budget is very rapidly approaching $1 trillion a year. And so there has been some talk about focusing on some waste. I mean, the Pentagon has failed every single audit 7 years in a row. And so I'm excited to see what DOJ focuses on in regard to the Pentagon. The other issue is the fact
has welcomed them to come in. Hegseth wants that too.
So we'll see what they cut and see how much of a difference it makes. The other area where I think that Trump can really make a difference, and I think he would go down as a historic president, is if he allowed for our Medicare system to negotiate drug prices. Just negotiate drug prices.
He's not going to do anything, right? He's not going to touch Medicare or security with reform or anything because he's a smart politician. They all know if they say anything, about Medicare or Social Security, they're not going to win. So all of the efforts have been outside of those two groups, which of course are the main groups behind entitlement spending. And I mean, that would really show. You want to see like Trump proving he has a steely spine and he doesn't give a shit? Go do something about that over there,
right.
Which it's not going to happen.
But he would go down as the most popular president in American history if he allowed for Medicare to negotiate drug prices. So Americans and our Medicare system wasn't being price gouged by pharmaceutical companies.
Why won't he do that? I mean, I know why he won't lower the retirement age for Social Security and he doesn't want to make any Medicare cuts or do anything that's going to increase costs for seniors. But why wouldn't he allow Medicare to negotiate costs?
Honestly, I think if this issue was brought to him by anyone in a very serious way, he would attempt to do it. He doesn't really care about
maybe Dr.
what
Oz
is or isn't allowed, right? So yeah, I mean, that would be incredible. I don't think that he's paying attention to that, but I think if you talk to him and ask him to work on that issue, it could really save the American taxpayers
RFK will do
a lot of money. That would be
about
fantastic.
That, Anna?
I mean, think he should.
This isn't something I spent a lot of time on, but like this sounds like something that wouldn't typically be done because most people are beholden to the drug companies who don't want this. And RFK is not beholden to the drug companies. That's one of the great things about him. That's one of the things the left hates about him. But he, technically oversees Medicare now. And well, when he gets confirmed, which is going to be tomorrow. And Dr. Oz directly oversees Medicare and Medicaid. And so like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they actually will touch the untouchable.
Oh, it would embarrass Democrats so much if they managed to do that. It would be the most embarrassing thing for Democrats who claimed under the Biden administration that they were going to do it, but they're beholden to the pharmaceutical companies as well.
Yep.
And so they whittled down that part of the agenda to 10 drugs that the Medicare system can negotiate. I mean, it's pathetic. It really is.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, hasn't Trump already done enough for the big pharma with the, Operation Warp Speed and the vaccines and the liability shield over companies like, Pfizer? Like he's done enough for them. He doesn't need to keep protecting them. This would be a great thing to consider. All right. Stand by. We're going to take a quick break, and then there's much more to discuss on the other side. I'm actually looking forward to discussing. Believe it or not, I want to do a Super Bowl ad with you that I have not yet gotten to. You know how much my family and I love our dogs, right? Yes, even my sweet Strudwick. Cannot imagine life without them. They have a great life, but some dogs are not so lucky. And this is why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all these animals with shelter and safety and most of all, love. And they have been doing it now for more than 45 years. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions, and giving can bring tax benefits too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need, and check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but we would like for other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. We all have about a million things on our plates, right? Family, work, staying healthy. But I want to tell you about We Heart Nutrition. We Heart Nutrition creates the high-quality, research-backed supplements for women and men at every stage of life. Whether you are managing a busy household, a demanding career, or both, these supplements are designed to help you stay strong, energized, and to achieve your wellness goals. They are proudly pro-life, donating 10% of every sale to pregnancy care centers. How about that? And with over 1,000 five-star reviews, people are seeing real results and sharing how these products have changed their lives. Go to weheartnutrition.com and take their 20-second quiz to get recommendations tailored just for you. And right now, We Heart Nutrition is offering 20% off your first order when you use the code Megyn at checkout. Plus, get a free bamboo capsule box with any order of $50 or more. They're actually really cute, the bamboo capsule boxes. They sent me some, and I love them. Invest in your health. Head to weheartnutrition.com today. Use the code Megyn for 20% off your first order. That's weheartnutrition.com, code MEGYN. Okay, I want to talk to you about a couple of things from the Super Bowl. I was at the Super Bowl, and the one disadvantage of being at the Super Bowl is you don't get to see the ads. And they're kind of fun to watch, and they're always fun to rip on, right? And I missed that experience. So slowly but surely, I am getting to them. Here we are on Wednesday, and I still have two I haven't talked about, and I'd love to do that with you. Okay, so first of all, Jennifer Say, who, used to work at Levi's and was a star gymnast when she was younger, she started this company XXXY, and she's been pressuring Nike to try to do an ad, to try to get them to do an ad. Her ad has all these little girls saying, will you stand up for me, Nike? Will you stand up for me? To try to keep boys out of girls' sports. Will you stand up for me? Of course, so Nike does an ad, and it's about girls. Great, we're halfway there. And is it about keeping boys out of their sports? No, it's about how, I guess, America is full of sexist pigs and girl power. Watch the ad.
You can't be emotional, so be emotional. You can't take credit. You can't speak up. You can't be so ambitious. You can't break records. You can't have any fun. You can't make demands. You can't keep score. You can't stand out. Whatever you do, you can't win. So win.
You can't win, so win, is how the screen reads. I'm sorry, Anna. They missed the boat entirely. That is not today's issue. They are ignoring the elephant in the living room. What do you make of it?
I mean, I would have tweaked it for sure, but not by much, just a little bit. I would have just showcased these incredibly successful, strong, accomplished women without having that tinge of victimhood associated with it.
Yes.
Because these women have accomplished amazing things. They're incredible. And I feel like it kind of takes away from their accomplishments to add that weird victimhood thing to it. Look, this is the reality. Okay. Are there misogynistic people out there? Sure. Yeah, there are. But steamroll them. Okay. Steamroll them like these women did. Okay. They don't control us, and they don't control our destiny. If you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to focus and be persistent, you can do anything you want to do, period. And these women did. So I just, as a woman, I don't want to deal with the incessant labeling of victimhood because of my identity, right? And I think that happens to a lot of different groups.
I went to college from 1988 to 1992, as I'm an old lady. And these were the messages they were telling me when I was 17 through 21 about being a woman in America. You can be emotional, you can be ambitious, you can stand out, you can win. Hello, would you, Nike, 2025 called, and they want an updated ad that matches the issues of the day, like what's happening in girls' sports. And not to be outdone, the NFL decided to drop its own ad for a reason that it remains a mystery to me, that is completely consistent with what we just saw from Nike, trying to highlight what a sexist society we live in. And the ending left me watch.
Enough. Let's settle this once and for all. Your best guy?
Girl.
Whatever. Versus our best guy. The Brad.
Oh, not the Brad. I'm Brad.
I can read.
There you go. You got folded up, Brad. Get her. Okay. That's what I'm talking about.
Leave the past behind. Now it's girls playing flag football against other girls, I think. Let's make girls flag football a varsity sport in all 50 states. Okay, help me out here, because again, this whole thing seems to be set in the 1980s. They've got the razor glasses. The guy's got a mullet. He has the collar turned up. They've got the rock band. And they're trying to pretend that this girl, when playing against a team of the Brads, who are, of course, doofuses, because the left loves to portray men, especially white men, but all men, as just a bunch of clawed doofuses. And she smokes them all, which is not how it would actually go at all. I mean, what's actually happening when girls are playing against boys is they're getting hurt, they're getting beaten, they're in danger, they're getting all their teeth knocked out, they're in the pool with the likes of Lia Thomas, and they're getting absolutely crushed by full body lengths. That's what actually happens. because women are at a physical disadvantage. But in this imaginary NFL world, women are crushing the Brad and guys like him because girl power. And all of this is to promote girl football, which is against other girls, Ana. So help me out. What is the NFL saying here?
I hate this crap. I hate all of this crap. Okay, we just got through with an election cycle that really highlighted significant divisions between men and women. I feel like there's this effort to pit Americans against each other, depending on their identity or based on their identity. I don't see men as the enemy here, okay? I think men in America have their own issues that need to be addressed. Obviously, the male loneliness crisis is a real crisis. If you look at graduation rates, women are graduating at higher rates than men are from higher education, from colleges and institutions like that. And so, look, I just think we need to heal. The country needs to heal. And these divisions based on identity, like, we need to stop taking the bait. Like, I think there's a lot of bait right now, and it's a distraction. And in reality, we need to be hyper-focused on how to improve the material conditions of Americans, period. That is what should be the focus. And look, corporations like Nike are going to put out ads like that because they think that it's going to help them maximize their profits. Sometimes they hit the mark, sometimes they don't. Bud Light, of course. Conservatives decided to rain hell on Bud Light over the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing. I think these companies are probably better off not weighing in on culture war stuff because it only further divides Americans, and you're trying to sell us shoes and sports equipment. Focus on that.
And why wouldn't the NFL, if they want to get girls playing flag football, show girls playing flag football against girls and how fun it is and how competitive and how fierce? Why do you have to make guys into the big loser oafs who, obviously men suck. They're dumb. They're Neanderthals. They're outdated. Why? Why would you do that? Like, that's part of this wokeness, this woke mind virus, as Elon calls it. I mean, we're over it, and we won a whole election in order to send that message. Let me ask you this. There is now a push by the Trump administration who sent a letter to the NCAA and to the body that governs high school sports saying, thanks to Trump's executive order, we can't have boys playing in girls' sports on any NCAA team. But they're saying, not only that, we want you to revoke the medals of the boys who did play and stole the girls' medals over the past years, like Lia Thomas, with whom Riley Gaines had to share her fifth place trophy, who won the 500 meter. He took gold in a women's match. And I have to say, and Riley said look at this, look at the height difference and the size difference. And Riley has said she's totally in favor of this. It's not just about her, it's about all the women she's been fighting for. And so am I. What say you?
I say you're going to put me in trouble, Megyn. You're going to put me in trouble, Megyn. You're going to give me another month of my mentions full of people losing their minds because, it's unfair. I agree. It is unfair. And the vast majority of Americans agree that it's unfair. Only 18% of Americans support the notion of biological males competing against biological females. And so
we're showing Lia Thomas while you talk. Keep going.
Yeah. And I just, look, I disagree with your framing a little bit because at the end of the day, I see the humanity in everyone, including transgender women. And so I want to be respectful to them, but I also want, I want that to be reciprocated. I want some acknowledgement in regard to the biological differences between males and females. And for people who don't think that's a big deal, well, you represent a tiny, tiny, minuscule percentage of Americans who think that it's totally fine for someone to compete against biological females if they're male one day and then identify as female the next day. It's not fair. It's a question of fairness. And if the left has decided that fairness doesn't matter, well, they're going to lose a lot of support. And I think that did hurt them significantly in this last election cycle.
We've been watching, in Connecticut where I live, male athletes who ran as males the season before then switch over to the female team and crush their female competitors who have not been through male puberty, who don't have testosterone in these numbers racing through their bodies. I've interviewed the girls. It's just so unfair. And I actually do think What is fair? Here's video of one and such track meet. What is fair is to make those men give back our trophies. They stole them. They cheated their way into getting them in the first place. And what is fair when somebody cheats? They do it in baseball all the time. You can't get into the Hall of Fame. My team, Syracuse, where I went to school, they got stripped of a bunch of titles because they recruited people with all sorts of, I don't know, nice lures that they weren't supposed to give, and they had to give up their trophies. That's what happened here. They should be forced to give back the trophies. Ana Kasparian, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me, too.
All right, come back soon. No, we are back tomorrow, and we're going to have the fellas from Ruthless, who next week are celebrating a very special anniversary, and we'll have a preview for you on that. I actually think it's going to be fun to talk to them about Mitch McConnell not voting for Tulsi, because, you know, Holmes used to work for McConnell. So he doesn't hate McConnell, but of course McConnell's changed in the Republican Party. So where do the fellas stand now? We'll talk to them tomorrow.